Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Sunday Matinee. I, I am Ben Stahl, and tonight on the panel we have returning Sarah Moore,
Hello.
and we also have filling in last minute, thank you very much, my cousin Marit Case.
Hi, everyone.
So we're going to kick off here just with a nice little, like a fun little thing to discuss. We're entering into a new decade, which means that there's some fun anniversaries to look back on and reflect. So 10 years ago, we were in 2010, and I was thinking about what were some of the best movies we had back then. And I can't think of a bad movie I saw in the theater in 2010. It was just a really good year. This was the year of How to Train Your Dragon, Kick-Ass, Inception, Scott Pilgrim, Toy Story 3, Social Network. So yeah, let's talk about this. Is 2010 possibly the best year in the last decade for movies?
When I was looking up movies that were released in 2010 to prepare a little, it brought up a good memory for me of a movie you and I saw in Portland in 2010.
That's right.
Remember that one?
Yep. 2010 was the year of True Grit.
True Grit.
That was the big holiday film I think that was the big holiday film for me. I don't remember too many other holiday films. Yeah, True Grit. You are not LaBeef. That was a great time. But yeah, I mean, like what a year for me, what a year for animated movies. Like when I went and saw How to Train Your Dragon, like I'd heard pretty good stuff about it. I did not expect it to be the first DreamWorks animated film that I saw that I'd finally say, holy crap, these guys are they're as good as Pixar. I was never into Shrek. I'll admit the first two Shreks are pretty good, but I was never really into Shrek. Dragon was the first DreamWorks franchise that really hooked me. So yeah, and to follow that up later in the year with Toy Story 3, I was like, man, what a great year for animated movies. And even though I love Toy Story 3, I think it won the Academy Award for Animated Picture, and that was the first time I think I said to myself, I wish, a non-Pixar movie had won. So here's a great debate. Dragon versus Toy Story. Which one did you two like better?
Are you saying specifically like Dragon versus Toy Story 3 or first Dragon versus first Toy Story?
For Dragon versus Toy Story 3, since we're in the 2010.
Okay, I would definitely say How to Train Your Dragon then.
I will admit that How to Train Your Dragon is probably a better film, but the nostalgia for Toy Story 3, because I saw it with all of my college friends, and then we all got to talking, and we were all 21, so we all got to drinking, and then that led to sad, nostalgic stories over toys, and then we all admitted which ones we'd brought with us to college, so there's kind of a fond memory around that, even though, yes, it is probably the subpar film. It's probably not as well written. The characters are a little flat, but, like, it brings up kind of a warm, happy feeling, so I might have to give Toy Story 3 the point in that regard.
Well, I mean, that's only when you compare it, for me, it's only when you compare it to Dragon. Like when I saw Toy Story 3, it was definitely like, oh my gosh, the nostalgia. I love the first two films. I love Toy Story 3. And I remember sitting in the theater as they're, spoiler alert, it's been 10 years. If you haven't seen Toy Story 3, get on that. When they're going into the incinerator, I legitimately thought, oh my God, this is it. This is how it's going to end.
Oh, yeah, I was sitting next to a friend of mine, and he reached over and he grabbed my arm, and I look over and he's got tears in his eyes. Like, Beto's about to full on start like sobbing because we're all convinced like this is it. They're all gonna melt down and be gone forever, and this is the end. Yeah.
If we were talking like the franchises, definitely I'd go for Toy Story as the better like overall series.
Oh yeah. For sure. Toy Story 1 and 2 are they're about as close to perfect as you can get. And 3's still great. I've had friends who I liked 4, but I can understand the argument that 4 didn't necessarily need to be made.
I have
Um,
never seen 4.
but if I were to put the Toy Story trilogy against the original Toy Story trilogy against the Dragon trilogy, it's Toy Story. I still like the Dragon trilogy, but the Dragon 2 and 3 to me weren't as memorable as 1.
Yeah, 1 was definitely the best one there, I would say.
I don't think I've seen 3. I watched 2 with your dad, Ben, but I don't think I've seen 3.
I don't think I've seen 3 either. I think I just saw 1 and 2.
I feel like 3 came and went into theaters like really fast.
Yeah, I don't even remember when it came out.
It was like early last year, early 2019. I think it took up roughly that February slot that like Lego Movie took in 2014. So I think that's about right. Anyway, back to 2010. So I mean, we can't not talk about Inception, how amazing that was back then, given what might be releasing to theaters here in the next 2 weeks. And we are going to do a Nolan-centric episode. I think that's how I roped Sarah into this.
Yes, I need to be in on that one. I'm
not a Christopher Nolan fan, so don't call me for that one. I did put Inception on my list though, because you asked for favorite movie memories of 2010. I had to see Inception with a bunch of college friends too, and at the end, when spoiler alert, the top doesn't fall very, very loudly in a packed theater that was dead silent. I just went, "Well, son of a bitch!" and everybody just started laughing and pointing, and I like slunk down in my seat and stayed till the credits were over because it was so frustrated. And I've never quite forgiven Christopher Nolan for that. So.
Inception to me was basically Nolan's love letter to filmmaking, and just the layers upon layers of the dreams they're so symbolic of what the layers upon layers of what a film can do.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen Dunkirk, but
you haven't seen Dunkirk?
Oh my god!
No, I haven't seen Dunkirk.
And I don't even like.
Even I've seen Dunkirk.
Dunkirk is amazing.
So for me, so far, Inception is peak Nolan, because I think the only movie of his I've seen since is Dark Knight Rises, and Dark Knight Rises to me was a step back, both for Batman films and for Nolan.
Did you not see Interstellar?
Oh shoot, yes, I saw Interstellar. I still think Inception is better than Interstellar. That's a tough argument though for the fans who
Inception
really
is
love
Interstellar.
Well, there are people out there who really love Interstellar. Like, I like it, but it just, when you get to the end, it's like I still can't wrap my head around the ending of that one. Mm-hmm. It's a tough film to grasp.
What I think is really interesting is that other than like, I guess, I don't know, like the Batman movies, I feel like are kind of a different section of Christopher Nolan, because usually he does his own material and that was like somebody else's character. But I think it's funny that Inception is like his most accessible movie. It seems to be the one that like the most people like saw and loved. And I just kind of felt like of all his movies, I think it's interesting that I always see that as like the accessible one. Whereas I think sometimes ones like Interstellar, it was like interesting, but like his movies can be so heady.
Well, I think it was just the right time for one of his original movies to really break through. He'd had 2 very well received Batman movies, and that, really, I know you love The Prestige, I love The Prestige, but like no one, like people still really didn't know who Nolan was yet. Mm-hmm. Like, but after Dark Knight, it's like, how could you not know who he was? And how could you not want to see a movie by the director of The Dark Knight that starred Leonardo DiCaprio, during like, I wouldn't say Leonardo DiCaprio's had a terrible phase, but like that was just he was on a really hot streak of popular films when he did Inception. And just that whole cast, like that was my introduction to Tom Hardy. Who who else? Joseph Gordon-Levitt was also on a hot streak at that time, and that was a really good film for him. Ellen Page.
Yeah, she was on a hot streak.
And of course, you know, it's not a Christopher Nolan movie without Michael Caine.
Nope.
It was like
no, he wasn't in Memento.
that's true.
Or Following.
Or Insomnia, right? I barely remember Insomnia.
So I feel like he started with Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Because I think Prestige came out right after Batman Begins, actually. I'd have to go back and check, but I think it.
Oh, I could. Yeah, I was in college. I remember walking to the theater to see Prestige in 2006. Back to 2010 though.
We'll save this for the Nolan.
I know. Just a few days. It was 2 or 3 days ago. I posted about a major birthday event. Scott Pilgrim versus the World turned 10 just a few days ago, and that was also, I think it was, for me, 2010. The best movies were Inception and Scott Pilgrim. Like, it's just a brilliant little, like, you know, in an era where it was all about, we're starting to be all about Marvel and coming off of Batman. Scott Pilgrim was kind of a breath of fresh air, a totally different type of comic book movie that we don't see enough, that really just acknowledges that it is a comic book movie in so many more ways than what we get with the mainstream stuff. And I wish more people had seen it in the movie theater. I'm glad that it's gotten a huge following on home video. But oof, that was just, I mean, for me, Edgar Wright, another great director who can do no wrong. I read somewhere back in 2010 that I think it was Greg Mottola, who directed Superbad and Paul, was originally slated to direct Scott Pilgrim. And Edgar Wright was supposed to direct Paul because, of course, it was a Simon Pegg, Nick Frost film, even though Wright had not contributed to the screenplay. And I can't remember who it was. One of the two suggested the other, why don't we switch? So, you know, and I'll take Paul and direct Simon and Nick, and then you can take Scott Pilgrim, which, if that's true, is brilliant, because I don't think that given the cast of Scott Pilgrim and, you know, Universal directing it or Universal producing it, like I don't think the producers would have thought to go with Edgar Wright for that one, but I think it was the perfect pick.
I'll agree, because I didn't love it when it first came out. I watched it a couple times since then and realized, oh my God, look at this cast. Like, that cast is stacked, which nobody realized at the time, because we didn't know who all these people were. And all of a sudden now they're everywhere. And you're like, oh my God, that's Chris Evans before he was Captain America. And just like, your mind's kind of blown. I have a finer appreciation for it now than I did 10 years ago. I thought it was kind of hokey. I thought it was kind of stupid. I think maybe I was a little bit pretentious because, you know, I was a junior in college. So you get a little uptight about things because they're not intellectual, even though it's a much smarter film than I probably give it credit for at the time.
Going back to that cast, to me, it was crazy. It's crazy to look back at that cast now and think of how many actors in it either were or would become superheroes in some of these mainstream movies, like Chris Evans. Brie Larson was one of her first big roles. Why can't I remember his name? The guy who played Superman in Superman Returns.
Brandon Ruth.
Yep, he's in it. Gosh, that might be it, but still, that's three. That's three people. And probably, I don't know, probably the last Michael Cera movie I saw, which is crazy because it's been 10 years. So,
has he been in any more movies?
I was going to say, has he done since 2010?
I feel like he had a really...
The one with Seth Rogen about the world ending that came out the same year as The World's End.
Oh, yeah. It's weird. it's not great. Yeah, I think it's just called like End of the World or like This Is the End.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. It's weird. The Backstreet Boys show up at the end, which is really all you need to know.
Oh, that was a weird movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked a lot about 2010. Let's jump forward 5 years. Actually, I want to say one more thing about 2010 because 2010 to me is the one year that Marvel Studios, apart from 2009, in which they released no movies, it's their 1 year. Iron Man 2 to me was, I don't think it's a terrible movie, but to me it was a miss. I don't think they've had a bad year since, except for maybe this year for obvious reasons.
Not getting to release anything.
But yeah, Iron Man 2, like, I don't know, first sequel, you know, to arguably I still think a lot of people think Iron Man 1 is probably the best first movie of any of the franchises, and it holds up very well. But 2, I don't know. Knowing a little bit about the character from the comics, I was a little disappointed with. They said they were going to go with veer towards his alcoholism in Iron Man 2, and it's like they really don't. They really kind of changed it to his chest piece device screwing up his life, and it's like, all you have to do is take that out and fix it. I don't know. Iron Man 2.
It wasn't one of my favorites. I don't really even remember what happened in it.
I do remember at the sitting all the way through the credits and seeing Mjolnir at the end of the film, and the big thunder crash, and it's like, oh, it's Thor, and being the only person at the Seahome 3 up in Bellingham who like cheered and was like, oh, this is fun, but it's also embarrassing because I'm the only person in this room who knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. But let's fast forward. 2015. 2015 to me, not a lot of good anniversaries this time around. I can't remember too many movies from 2015 except for Fury Road, which is the best film of 2015.
To say, if you don't celebrate Fury Road, Ben, then I'm going to be very upset. Because that's the only one I have down: Fury Road and Ant-Man.
I like Ant-Man. Ant-Man's a good one, and actually, I would say Ant-Man was better than Age of Ultron, which is surprising.
Star Wars: Force Awakens had come out in 2000.
Oh, that's right.
I fell asleep in the theater watching that one, so I don't actually remember how it ends. I think I woke up in time for the ending, but I missed a good middle chunk there. So.
I was Spectre came out in 2015 as well. Even though it was okay. It was not as good as Skyfall.
Also another maybe not like hugely well known, but one I really liked was Crimson Peak.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, now that we're talking about the fall movies, 2015 was actually kind of a banger because there was Crimson Peak. The Walk was really good with Joseph Gordon-Levitt again. If you saw that in 3D, I got vertigo seeing that in 3D. I think possibly in IMAX as well or something. It was nuts. The Martian was 2015. 5 years of Matt Damon in space. And that was just 1 year after Matt Damon was in space in Interstellar. And I'm really disappointed I'm still disappointed that that's not a thing that continued every single year. I really think we need to have more Let's Go Save Matt Damon in space movies. But yeah, Ultron was kind of it was ho-hum. It was okay. Ant-Man's a blast. I love Ant-Man. Paul Rudd, I think that was the last time I questioned casting in a Marvel movie was Paul Rudd. And after I saw Ant-Man, I was like, okay, I just never need to question who they cast in these movies ever again because it's one thing they consistently get right. So we'll talk more about Ant-Man and Ultron in the MCU episode at some point soon. So yeah, great. Thank you, Sarah, for mentioning Crimson Peak and jogging my memory. 2015, it was a much better year for movies than I remember it. but still, Fury Road's the best of them all.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on to the news. So I want to start out with something that kind of harkens back to what we were talking about last week, because AMC Theaters announced they're going to be reopening how many? I think they said 100 locations on August 20th. So that is 4 days from today. We're recording on the 16th. So they're going to be opening 100 locations. And for that one day on August 20th, all ticket prices will be 15 cents. They're not showing any new movies on that big opening day, and probably not showing anything new for that first week. Then I believe the first big new movie that's going to be opening is on the 28th, after several, possibly the most delayed movie we'll ever talk about on this show, The New Mutants, which is the last sort of X-Men movie that Fox was working on before they were acquired by Disney. It had just been delayed, I believe, because Disney didn't like the cut of the film. It was supposed to come out April of 2018. So they sent it back for reshoots and more reshoots, and then COVID. And yeah, so it's finally coming out. Maybe, we'll see. And then a week later, we get Tenet, as we reported last week. So the question I have, right now is, again, we didn't think this was going to be happening last week. We thought theaters were going to be staying closed for much longer, and that Warner Brothers would delay Tenet. Do you think that this weekend is going to be something of a trial run to see how well socially distanced theater and all new air ventilation systems and cleaning systems work in movie theaters? Also, Regal is opening many of their locations on the 21st. So a lot of movie theaters are going to be opening this weekend, unless you live in California and New York, because they have still mandated that theaters must be closed. So do we think this is, how long do we think this is going to last?
Can theaters be open here?
They didn't mention Washington as one that is not going to get reopened.
Or is it only in certain counties? I don't know. For some reason, I thought counties that were still in phase 2, like bars, theaters, anything like that, can't be open yet, but I could be wrong. I know there's some counties that are in phase 3 in Washington, but
I'm going to Google AMC theaters, and I'm going to type in the old zip code here and see which, find a theater. We'll just use my zip code. Okay. Oof. It looks like, AMC Kent Station 14, which is about 10 minutes from where I'm at, is not listing any show times for Thursday or anytime this week. Let's jump to next week. Yeah, they're not listing any show times. So I'm guessing it's certainly in my part of King County, which probably means every part of King County. I'm guessing they're not going to be opening.
Yeah, I know King, Snohomish, Pierce are kind of the still, well, and I think like Yakima too, but are still kind of the counties with the highest case numbers. So I know we're probably going to be stuck in phase 2 for a while.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know there's some other counties in Washington that are in phase 3, but
congratulations.
I know.
Congratulations to all of the counties in the northeastern part of the state that don't have dense populations.
I know.
Congratulations to all of you.
It happens without trying.
And by congratulations, I mean, please don't go to the theater and be unsafe. I'm going to put that out there now. I really don't think this should be happening. And I really think this is going to, if we're talking about virtual learning in schools across the country, why aren't we talking about keeping theaters closed? I mean, Disney played it smart with Mulan, but Disney's also not playing it smart with New Mutants. Maybe they're just banking on the fact that New Mutants was never going to make much money anyways.
That's possible.
I don't know. I don't think this is something that theaters should be doing right now. I know it's rough. They're so far behind, and there's a lot of movies to see.
Theater. I worked on a theater for several years when I was in high school. I was there for like 3 years. Unless you have a very, very large staff who can move very quickly, disinfecting theaters in time to maintain even half of a regular schedule is going to be a very huge undertaking, especially if you have a really big theater. So I can understand why maybe some smaller theaters would be able to do it, like independent theaters who just have like one screen and they could space people out every 2 seats and you only do the 2 shows a day. Something like that might be feasible. To clean a 300-seat theater, which is not even a super large theater by some standards, like the one that I worked at in Oregon, I think our largest theater sat over 400 people. Even if you only had a third of that filled capacity, to wipe down absolutely everything and make sure that it's totally safe for the people to be in there would just be a massive undertaking. And since theaters mostly employ like high school students and stuff like that, you're asking a lot of these kids, for a lot of whom it's like a first-time job, you're putting a really big public health responsibility on them. I'm trying to picture managing my team with the people that I had in a similar kind of situation, and even in my head, it's not going super well. I think that's too big a logistical challenge to ask of your employees. So I'm with you 100%. I miss movies. I love movies. I miss trailers, interestingly enough. Like, I just miss the excitement and the anticipation of like, hey, that looks like a really good movie. Or of, having the debate with Zach in the 5 seconds when the next green screen comes up. Like the last movie we went to see before COVID happened, we saw a trailer for the next James Bond film. And I was like, no, you dragged me to Spectre once. I fell for it once. We're not doing that again. And the guy next to me laughed. Like, those kinds of little moments that happen in movie theaters, I miss those a lot. And we go see a lot of movies. I think before COVID happened, we saw probably a movie every 3 to 4 weeks. Like, we were seeing one at least once a month, sometimes more, especially during the winter months when there's nothing happening. So I want them to come back, but I don't think it's safe to do so yet.
Well, and how do you clean the air? I mean, it's an airborne virus. Like, how do you clean? And, like, if people are sitting in there for 2 hours, I mean, even if you can space people apart and they can have masks on, but how do you know people aren't putting their mask down to itch their nose? It's just
I was thinking about that too. Like, you can't shine a light in the face of every single person every 10 minutes to make sure they still got their mask on. Like, you can't police that many people in a space like that during an event like that. And you don't want that person when they're like shaming, like, oh, that person's not wearing their mask, and then they're yelling during the movies. Like, the whole point of going to the movies is to be immersed in the movie and to not worry about what's happening around you, not worry about what's happening with people around you. And like, if it's annoying enough when somebody's on their cell phone or like, rustling popcorn boxes, just imagine like how stressful it's gonna be if someone's in there like pulling their mask down and they're coughing, or they're just like worried all the time. Like, oh my God, if I go see Tenet, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to, even though it's a Christopher Nolan film, like, just it looks weird and looks good. I want to be able to enjoy the weirdness and the goodness and not think about whether or not the person down from me is coughing because, the air is dry, or if they've got COVID. I've avoided it successfully so far. I would like to, knock on wood, continue to successfully avoid it.
Me as well.
Same.
Yeah.
And to your point about, the associates there, policing the audience. In my experience, just as a patron, a theater is a place where people break rules all the time. Mm-hmm. So, now you're just adding on more rules on top of it. Sarah asked about how do they clean the air. I know AMC commented about how they're changing out like their HVAC systems into something much more modern. I don't understand the science of how that's supposed to work because germs.
Yeah,
but,
I I don't think they know enough to know if that's really going to remove it from the air. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, and I mean, I was talking with my sister about this earlier. Like concession stands have to be even worse because you have, the people at the concession stands handing you stuff. Hopefully they'll be wearing gloves, but like, at our movie theater down at the end of the concession stand is the little salt shaker that you can put on your popcorn. People are going to be touching that.
Well, and there
It's
you go. Concessions. Everyone's going to have their masks down to eat.
yes. If you are going to go,
Stop selling
my
that.
suggestion is bring your own food. And that's one of the rules that people often break anyways, is they bring their own snacks in.
Oh yeah.
You know, make sure you're wearing something with nice deep pockets, so you can get that giant can of Dr. Pepper in there or whatever your beverage of choice. But yeah, it's so complicated. And I think this weekend's really going to be an interesting trial run to see how cooperative patrons are, how safe it is for the associates who work at all these places. And the problem is it's going to take another week or two to find out if people are actually getting infected, because they won't be exhibiting symptoms for a week or two after, if they're exposed. So if you are planning to go to see a movie, whether it's for 15 cents or you're going to wait and you're going to go see New Mutants or Tenet, please exercise as much caution as you can and be as patient as you can with the people working there, because they're probably terrified of how this is going to roll out. And like Mart said, a lot of them are going to be high school kids, and that's just all the more stressful for them. So please be careful out there, everybody. And if you can help it, just don't go. That's the first part of the news. So the second part is going to tie into our upcoming debate on physical media versus digital. A couple of interesting stories that popped up this week. So from a couple of sources, I've heard that Disney is going to cease production of its physical 4K catalog releases, mostly the ones that are going to be coming from Fox. So all those older movies out there that, haven't gotten a 4K release yet, that like deep catalog stuff from, like the 50s onward and that kind of stuff. I'm sure a lot of the newer movies are still going to get them, but certain exclusions to some of the catalog stuff, I know for a fact are coming. Include Hocus Pocus, Home Alone. Those are both coming, I believe, at the end of the year to physical 4K. And it looks like they're also trying to work on 4K discs for Aliens, The Abyss, True Lies, and Avatar. And I have a feeling that's because James Cameron is working on the Avatar sequels for Disney. And so I don't know if that's a deal he tried to get with them. I know Cameron I'm sure Cameron pulled a few strings there, because Cameron is also that type of director who loves his films being viewed in the best possible way. And right now 4K disc is the best possible way, which is an argument that I hope we make soon. So it also said that future Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar titles will not be affected by this, which is not a surprise, because the 4K Marvel and Star Wars films have sold very well, and Pixar films also look incredible in 4K. So that it's just a bummer that we're not going to see some classic films like Disney. With Fox, they got the 1959 version of Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth. That's probably going to be stuck on Disney Plus for the rest of its life, and may never even see a Blu-ray release. Because as far as I know, the only Blu-ray release of it was from the boutique publisher Twilight Time, which no longer exists. So on a similar note, I got this story from the website The Digital Bits. Warner Media is laying off 600 of its employees, and many of them are going to be in the home media division. No word on exactly how that's going to affect home media, but I have a feeling it is going to somehow affect the release of future Blu-rays and physical 4K. I believe that they are working on a complete 6-film set of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies for 4K. I think just about anything that's as big as that is probably safe and going to get a 4K release. I'm sure Disney will probably get the Indiana Jones films on there at some point. And they may possibly. I don't know who has the home video publishing rights for Bond anymore. It used to be Fox, but I think that deal expired. But I think the Bond films may be also due for a 4K upgrade at some point. I know the Daniel Craig ones did, which is nice, but that's only 4 of 24 films. So I'm going to keep an eye on that and see what's going on over at Warner. Because they also have a really deep catalog of films that are not on Blu-ray yet. And I hope they don't get stuck on streaming services or just regular old DVD, because we're at that point where DVD is kind of obsolete. It looks terrible on nice TVs. On the complete opposite side of this, Sony is releasing the Columbia Classics 4K Ultra HD Collection Volume 2, and they are asking for fan input as to what should be on that set, which is very encouraging to see that Sony at least cares what the fans want in these sets and cares enough to actually release sets like this, which it sounds like Warner and Disney are not going to do. So I hope that more studios are keen on getting some of those big at least some of those big movies out there. So we're not really going to discuss the news that much, because a lot of it I think is going to come up in what I'm calling the Great Debate. We're going to talk about physical media versus digital media. So for those of you who aren't too geeky about this, physical media it's just discs. It's Blu-rays, it's 4K Blu-rays, it's DVDs. If you still have a VCR, it's VHS. If you still have a VCR and that's how you're watching your new movies, please upgrade. Just a DVD player can't cost that much anymore. If you own a Laserdisc player, please let me know. I've never seen one live, and I've heard they're amazing. But I also know they don't really exist either. So digital media, I'm sure one of my friends has one. Digital media, basically today, digital media means streaming. 10 years ago, it was kind of a different story. 10 years ago, when you bought a Blu-ray and it came with a digital copy, you would actually download that digital copy onto your computer, and you would play it through like a program like Windows Media Player or iTunes, and it would take up space on your hard drive. Obviously, streaming movies don't take up space on your hard drive. You just download the app, and the app does all the work on a server out in the middle of wherever the heck it is they store their servers. So I'm going to give a little bit of history. So yeah, this was 10 years ago that, that's what a digital copy was. And 10 years ago, Netflix was still pretty big with DVD by mail. And it was probably sometime in early part of the decade that they really started pushing the streaming service.
They still do have DVD by mail.
They do. I actually looked that up. Though I love how it's not, you can't do it like through Netflix proper. It's like through like dvd.netflix.com.
Yeah, it's like its own app.
And it has the site is just completely different. I think the site even just says dvd.com, and it's like, okay. So yeah, DVD by mail still exists. I don't know how prevalent Redbox is anymore, but I'm sure there are still some of them out there. But
they're still around a little bit, I think.
The reason I wanted to have this debate is is because of these stories that I'm talking about. Is physical media is it's slowly, very slowly disappearing. Right now we get to enjoy both, but 10 years from now, physical media may not be a thing, and I find that worrisome. For reasons that I'll bring up at some point. But I'm gonna let Sarah take the floor here. And Sarah, what why I know, and here's the thing, and I'm sorry to put that on you, Marit. I know you also have a pretty big, between you and Zach, have a pretty big physical media library. But I'm gonna hand it over to Sarah to talk about what is great about the physical media.
It's okay. I mean, I do streaming as well. I do both.
I know we all do.
We all do. We all dabble. I think for me, just physical, like, I don't even know like physical media is something I've always had. Like, I mean, since I first started getting into movies and collecting movies, I had a huge VHS collection that started around the time I was in 5th grade. And I would buy them used at like my local video store. Just going into video stores and like rent and looking through all the cases and renting. I mean, that was like my childhood. And eventually, I think around the time I was probably 17 or 18, I switched to DVDs, and I kept both for a while. I even had like the machine that played DVD and VHS. But I slowly kind of sold off the VHS and got them all on DVD. And then that happened again. Well, I did HD DVD at first, and then sadly it went by the wayside. So I had to switch to Blu-ray. I was pretty like upset about that because I was starting a really good collection. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I've always had a physical movie collection. It used to be huge. I remember there was a point, I think, when I probably had like 800 to 900 DVDs, and I like had them all in like my linen closet in one of my like old apartments, and it was like the DVD closet. And just seeing like the physical collection, looking through the titles, like, I don't know, there's just something about that I like seeing, like the physical collection. It feels more like you're collecting. Granted, that takes up a lot of room. I ended up selling off probably about half my collection at some point because I was broke. So that's another good thing about physical media. If you're broke, you can sell some of them off to make money. But I think, yeah, I mean, just kind of like, I'm really visual. So just having that kind of physical and for people who like to collect all the different types of special editions, the special cases, special liner, like that kind of stuff always like got me. Like special liner notes, all the special features on DVDs, I was a huge fan of. I loved listening to commentaries. I loved watching all the behind the scenes thing and all the different trailers they would have on the DVD. And then also just, you know, you always have it. I mean, obviously, you know, it keeps kind of upgrading to new, like, you know, it went from DVD to Blu-ray to 4K, which I haven't gotten into 4K because I was kind of too busy with grad school when that came out. But even those people hanging onto VHS, I mean, you have it and you can watch it. And it's, as we're learning with streaming services, the movies are flipping back and forth between streaming services, and a movie you think you had on Netflix suddenly leaves because Disney starts their streaming service. And it seems like everybody's starting up their streaming service now. So, but for those movies you always know you want to watch, I really like having the physical copy of them, because then if I want to watch it, I can watch it and I don't have to worry about which streaming service it's on now. So there's my first argument.
Marit, I'm actually going to have you talk about pro physical stuff as well. We're just going to all talk about what we love about each one, and then we're going to talk about what we don't like about each one. So that's how it's going to go now. I have decided.
And so for pro physical stuff, what I really like about physical stuff is a little bit like what I was talking about in Toy Story 3. For me, it's a lot of nostalgia. Like, my mom still has a VHS copy of The Little Mermaid because it's the one where the animator allegedly drew a penis on the castle and then got fired for it. Yeah. My mom doesn't even have a VHS player, but she has a VHS because, like, it's a funny story. It's also my favorite Disney film it's the first copy that I literally wore out. Like, we had to go buy it, and we had to wait until it like got released in the vault again to buy the new VHS. And then when it finally came out on Blu-ray, it came out on my 18th birthday. I got like 3 copies of it on Blu-ray. I still have one of them, even though it's on Disney Plus, because again, there's like that memory attachment to it. But I also think this is where streaming kind of has a pro-con thing going on. They have a lot, and they have some truly bizarre stuff out there, and they have some really great stuff out there that you're not going to come across in a Best Buy or a Target or wherever you buy your DVDs. And that's kind of cool. But there's so many things that are just never going to get there. And actually, no, I lied. My parents do still have their VHS, because there was a Disney Christmas special that has never been released. It showed on air once, and my mother watches it every single year because it's not on Disney Plus. It's never been released on VHS. It's not going to come out on Blu-ray ever. And I searched extensively, starting the day after Thanksgiving until Christmas Day, and then I do it again the next year to see if they're ever going to release this. So hanging on to your physical stuff, there's that one thing that you love that is just too obscure to make it onto a streaming platform, especially like the big 3. And I guess in my world, that's Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, like the main competitors, the ones that have been around the longest. Well, not Disney Plus, but, Disney Plus got a big market share because it's Disney. It's just like looming large. If it's not making it onto one of those 3, which are the ones that most people I know have, you're kind of SOL if you're looking for something really specific. I'm not huge into the collecting, having a lot of things. Like your 900 DVD linen closet gives me anxiety. Just like, I can't have that much stuff unless it's books, but that's a whole other debate.
I don't know.
That's a whole other thing in itself. We talk about that at a different time. But my husband really likes having his things. He's got like this special edition case for all of the first Marvel films that come in the little box that looks like it's got the Tesseract in it. And that just is something that makes him happy, which you don't get that with streaming, and it's there all the time. And then we have all of our Marvel films lined up next to it. And we've got our big, James Bond. I think we have the first 50 films, or it was released on 50th anniversary or something. And all of those are right there. And if Bond, for whatever reason, gets stuck in negotiation contracts and gets yanked off of streaming, he's got his favorite films right there, and he can watch them whenever he wants. So I like that part of the physical is, you have it. Like, it is never going to not be there unless something disastrous happens and, you break the DVD, or your VHS tape finally burns up, or your Laserdisc player stops working. I don't know what happens to those. I've never seen one either. So I think the solidity of that, especially in times when your life is just like going nuts, having a physical thing like that can be really comforting. It's almost like your blankie from when you're little. Like, I'm always going to have my Blu-ray copy of The Little Mermaid, and no matter what happens, if I have a functioning DVD player, if I have something to play that on, like, I can watch that and know it's going to be there, which is really great. It's like you said, you never know if something's going to get pulled off one of your streaming services, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I was really looking forward to that. I've been thinking about it like all day. It's been a really crappy day at work, and this would just be like a great thing to make my day better, and it's not there, and that's just really disappointing. There's nothing you can do about it. So physical is nice.
Those are all good points that I definitely had in my mind. I had something. I really did. What was I going to say? I'm looking at my collection right now to see if it jogs my memory. I will say it's easy if you do think your collection is taking up too much space. All of my DVDs are actually in a little binder. From when I moved up to Bellingham, I put them all in a binder because moving that entire collection would have been insane. But all of my Blu-rays and 4K and TV shows are all out on full display. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's just great to have it, literally, like you've said, to know it's there and to not depend on a streaming service, of which there are a lot now. There are so many streaming services, and I have a really bad feeling we're going to be seeing even more. in the coming years. Um, I would actually add Prime to make it a big four, because that's actually a pretty big one that a lot of my friends use. And thankfully, it's just Prime Video is just kind of a perk of just having Prime.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone gets Prime just for Prime Video. But Prime Video is a pretty big one. They're very interesting in that I don't know what it takes to get movies on there, because I feel like some like black market folk like to get streaming movies on there for free. And because I was just browsing the other night, I wanted to watch a bad movie, and I went to Prime, and they had listed they had King Kong versus Godzilla in there, but it was the picture they had for the movie was it was like a really crappy like word art kind of font. And it was a picture of like the modern 2014 American Godzilla versus like some really beefed up King Kong. It's like, this is not what, and then this is supposed to be advertising the 1962 Japanese film, and this is not what it looks like at all. And then they had one for Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, except they just called it The King Ghidorah. And the description of the film was like, just had poor grammar, and it's like, but it's there. It's there to stream, And it's like, what does it take to get a movie onto Prime if you can like bootleg it on there like that?
Well, I feel like Prime is the dumping ground. I kind of love scrolling through Prime when I can't sleep and just like reading all of the really terrible films, because I feel like all of the films that failed to become a Lifetime movie make it on there. I feel like they've got a lot of really bizarre like B-list actor kind of stuff from the 80s. I actually did find a film on there that I watched when I was in third grade called The Point. It's the weirdest thing you'll ever see. It's Harry Nilsson did the music, Ringo Starr narrates it, and it's about this people who are born with pointed heads, and it's this really strange animation. And I was like, this is not going to show up anywhere else but Prime, because Prime has Twilight and the latest like action film releases, and then their original programming, and then just like mountains of crap. Like I've never watched a film on Prime on purpose. I've watched a lot of the original series, but I've never specifically sought out a film on Prime because I knew it was there. Because I don't know. Like I just feel like that is the dumping ground for everything that couldn't get contracts anywhere else.
Well, they do have a handful of original films, not nearly as many as I think Netflix.
Oh,
but
one. I watched Troop Zero, and that was it.
But I feel like a lot of Amazon's movies that end up on Prime also actually go to movie theaters first. God, I feel like what was the one with and I hate to bring this up because his name is not one I like to name anymore, but the one Casey Affleck won an Academy Award for a few years back. That was an Amazon produced movie.
Manchester by the Sea.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that's an Amazon film. It
but
went
also
to
a
theaters.
Casey Affleck film, and that's where I stopped paying attention.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a topic for another conversation altogether. Since we're kind of veering that way, and you two covered pros of physical media really well, I'm going to jump straight into the cons of streaming, and then we can go into the pros of streaming, and then we can go back to the cons of physical media. So for me, the cons of streaming are, one, something we've brought up already: too many streaming services. I mentioned last week, literally, I'm not a fan of monopolies, but man, when Netflix was the only one, it was great because you could just go to Netflix. Now you have to go to, I have Netflix, I have Prime, I have Hulu, I have Disney. I only have Peacock because it comes free with Xfinity, which I don't even pay for. So, and
then
truth
all the
be told,
premium channels have their own streaming service too.
yeah, HBO, I had HBO for a while, and then there was a little snafu with that, and I haven't gotten it back. But I don't
Yeah,
feel
it
like I
changed to
need it.
like HBO Max, which doesn't work with
Yeah.
Fire anymore. So like we were paying for HBO Now. It's suddenly they change it to Max, which doesn't work with Fire, which is what we use, the Fire Stick. And now we don't have HBO. Like
Oh, and that's a similar problem with Peacock. I had a relative buzz me about, how do I get Peacock on this, and I looked it up, and Peacock's not available on Roku or Amazon Fire, or for you gamers out there, it's not available on PlayStation 4, but it's available on Xbox. So that's the only reason that I can watch Peacock. Um, yeah, it's weird how they have these little deals where we can't get all the streaming services in one place. I mean, that sucks for if you're not a gamer and you're depending on Fire or Roku. It's not fair that you can't get all the streaming services. Um, I think, well, I like on Xbox. I don't think I can get the Criterion streaming service, and I'd love to have that.
I don't even know they had a streaming service.
Yep, yep, that's a big one.
Oh, everything has the streaming service. There's BritBox, there's Acorn TV, which I think is all Canadian produced shows. Yeah, and like you said, Showtime, HBO, AMC, they've all got their own streaming services, which I've honestly I've never really understood, because a lot of those have contracts with like the others that we've mentioned. So you're not going to get to watch it right away, but if you're willing to wait 6 months, it's going to show up on Netflix anyway. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of these deals that Disney made mean that movies like some of the Avengers movies and all their other Marvel movies are at some point going to go back to Netflix and won't be on Disney Plus. And this coming on the day, I believe it was just this morning, I got a notification saying that Ant-Man and the Wasp finally made it to Disney Plus, which means that they're finally all on Disney Plus, except for the Incredible Hulk and the Spider-Man movies because of stupid deals with other studios. That'll come up in the MCU episode, I promise. Yeah, it just sucks that, and Harry Potter is moving from HBO Max to Peacock. And it's like, why? HBO is owned by Warner, and Warner makes Harry Potter. I don't know what kind of crazy deal went down there. So it's like trying to get all these streaming services. Like you cut the cable to save money, and now you're just paying more than you probably were for cable if you want every single streaming service. So you really have to pick and choose. And the problem with picking and choosing is that if you're leaving out one like Netflix or Disney or Prime or Hulu, those four in particular have very good original content. And unfortunately, a lot of that original content isn't coming to disc. Most of the Marvel shows that Netflix co-produced never made it to disc. Only a handful did, at least in this country. I'm pretty sure you can import them, but region locking. That's one of the bad things about physical media. It's one of the only bad things about physical media.
Yep.
We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, like what else? I don't know. I don't know if The Handmaid's Tale is out on physical. It probably isn't. Jack Ryan on Prime, Mrs. Maisel on Prime. All those critically acclaimed shows. Like you are stuck with your streaming service is the only way to watch them. Which, and I get it. If you're a person who can stand having one or two streaming services, that's great. But it's really rough for people like the three of us who love movies, who love television, and love a great variety of it. If Disney Plus had not included like stuff like The Mandalorian and the new Marvel shows that are coming up, I might not have opted in for it. But it's new Star Wars and new Marvel stuff. I can't say no to that. So yeah, like you got to find that balance, and unfortunately, that means picking and choosing, or sharing accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna come clean here. I have 5 streaming accounts. I have Netflix. We have the Disney Hulu Plus deal that includes ESPN Plus, which I don't count because I've never activated it, but I still have my HBO through Hulu. So you have Hulu, Netflix, HBO, Prime, and Disney Plus. I share accounts for all of them, which is part of the reason because those people were like, hey, you give me your password and I'll slide a little money your way to help pay for this, which is really nice. So just really hope nobody from the FCC or whoever monitors is listening to this right now, because there's like 5 different addresses on my accounts. But it does get expensive because there are a lot of things that we're missing out on. Like there are a lot of shows that like, that sounds really good. Like a lot of British TV. We get a lot of the mainstream stuff that comes over. Like I'd love to have BritBox, but I'm not willing to pay for yet another service, especially because it's kind of an unknown quantity and it could be great or it could suck. And I just don't know that I'm willing to spend, I don't know how much it is per month. Like, but you know, another $15 to try something and find out it's kind of disappointing. So.
Well, another problem, a potential problem is the more you sign up for, the more different entities have access to your credit card information. And the more likely you are to get hacked. Like, you know, I think they're all doing very good jobs at it, but you know, I remember a couple years back, we're going back on video games here, but like the Sony PlayStation Network had a massive hack, and a lot of credit card information was compromised during that one. And it's like, I was really grateful at the time that was just not a console I was using and wasn't paying for. So I lucked out, but, well, I mean, also like, my credit card information was compromised at one point for a completely different reason. And then the only reason I found out was because my Hulu subscription stopped. And I was like, why did my Hulu subscription stop? And that was when I dropped HBO, was because I was just like, I just didn't want to deal with entering my credit card information into everything again. So yeah, I picked and chose.
And a lot more passwords to remember. I mean, if you want to be secure about it, you know, not use the same password for everything, like a bunch more passwords to remember. It definitely makes me wonder if we're going to move back toward where it's going to be just like cable, and there's going to be companies that sell you the package of like these 40 streaming services, you know, just kind of like cable was. I don't know.
It'll probably end up being Disney, and they will end up getting all of them under the Disney umbrella, and
probably.
and then we'll have our monopoly again, and it will be the Disney one that we've all feared it would be.
I'm not terribly afraid of that. I would buy that package, probably. Not gonna lie. If all 40 of whatevers were under one.
No, it's not going to be one. It's going to be 2. It's going to be Disney will buy up half of them, and then Amazon will buy up the other half, because Amazon can afford to.
Yeah.
Amazon can afford to do that.
And Disney doesn't usually like to have R-rated stuff either, so there has to be another one that does like the more HBO kind of.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. So Amazon's gonna have to buy up all of our violent and R-rated and sexy TV shows that Disney won't touch because they're not family friendly. So yeah.
Well, we've gone off a lot about why we don't like streaming. What do we like about streaming? Mara, let you open us up with this one. What's great about streaming?
Well, there's the classic I don't have to put on pants aspect of it. I think especially during COVID, it's been a comfort to some people to have streaming. Like they can't go out. And I know we've knocked a lot on streaming for like not having that thing, but there is so much out there. And with, I think Disney launched it exactly the right time, right before all this went down, because everybody could stay inside and like their kids had something to watch that wasn't just whatever Tinkerbell was on Netflix. They could watch, you know, the old things from their childhood, and they could kind of relive all of that over again with their kids, which I think has been really great. I know I've read down Prime for just being the dumping ground of crap, but I do kind of appreciate just like the randomness that is out there. I really like that there are things that get suggested to me by algorithms that maybe I wouldn't have found otherwise. Like when you're walking through wherever you buy your DVDs, which is getting to be a smaller and smaller business now. I feel like if I'm looking for something unusual, I have to go specifically find it, and I usually have to find it online. You can't just kind of browse and come across a hidden gem in a physical store anymore, but you can do that on streaming. Like I found this great 6 little episode BBC series called Wasted on Hulu. It's literally just 3 hours of this TV show. They never went beyond the 6 episodes of 20 minutes each. And it's great. I watched it twice, like the entire season twice. And I found it 3 weeks ago because it's so easy to go through. But it's hysterical. And I never would have found it had Hulu not been like, hey, we suggest this for you. We think you would like that. Which has the flip side of this computer is getting to know me really well. And that's terrifying because that's how the robot uprising starts. But, you know, that's not something that I would have come across at my Target or Best Buy, or where do you even buy DVDs nowadays? Which
Target,
is the great thing about
Amazon.
streaming. Yeah, Target
and Amazon if you can't find it at Best Buy.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't find it at Best Buy, you buy it at Amazon, which is a whole other discussion that I have mixed feelings about. So yeah, it's just
the old Suncoast.
Oh my God.
I miss Blockbuster. I really do. Like Blockbuster kind of gave me the feeling that like libraries and bookstores do nowadays. Like you wander up and down, you pick things, you think it looks interesting. Sometimes you come across a great thing. Sometimes you get a total bomb, but that's kind of the fun of it. It's like you're buying this unknown entity, and streaming allows you to do that in some ways. Like you can find, and streaming because like you're paying for the service, not for the film. If 20 minutes in, you're like, this is crap, you don't feel guilty turning off. Like you haven't wasted money. You've only invested, you know, the time it took you to find the thing and then 20 minutes of it. And then you spend another 10 minutes scrolling through like your suggested stuff for, you know, hey, our staff recommends, and then you find something new to watch, which is kind of great. And you don't have to leave your house to do it, which is also kind of great because at my house, that means like my snacks and my blanket and my cats. And I can't take my cats to the movie theater. I mean, I could, but I don't think it'd go well. They wouldn't like it.
Sarah, what is great about streaming?
I mean, I feel like probably the number one good thing about streaming is just convenience. It's very convenient. You get access to a large choice of things very easily. And yeah, I mean, I think it's great for just kind of what it's done for even like the quality of TV shows, because there's so many streaming services and they all started creating their own content, and like how Netflix used our data in a good way to decide to basically research what kind of TV shows people would be interested in. And they've created some like really interesting content from that. So I'd just say the convenience and the fact that they can like, you know, kind of create these shows that are for more niche audiences, and they don't have to be like the network show that gets millions of viewers a week, because I hate all of those pretty much. So that, yeah. And I feel like for checking stuff out, you know, what used to be renting, as much as I have a lot of nostalgia of going to the video store and browsing and renting, I think streaming is nice for just kind of checking something out. Because like you said, Marit, if you start watching it and it's like, this is not my thing, you know, you can just quickly, you know, look for something else. You don't have to be like, oh, well, that was the one DVD I rented, so I guess I have to sit through it, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's a really nice part of streaming as well. I'm just going to add in a quick bad thing about streaming, because I didn't add anything earlier, is that it's dependent on your internet. And when a lot of people are watching stuff on Friday night, I notice Netflix skips a lot.
So, the other bad thing about streaming that we forgot to mention is it's a financial privilege, because that many things starts to get expensive. So not only do you have to pick and choose what do you like, but you have to pick and choose what can I afford. So
it's interesting you brought that up, because one, first off, that whole internet thing, if you have bad internet, yeah, streaming can be a pain. Trying to stream in 4K is even worse if you have the setup to do it, just because it takes so much more bandwidth. And it's a little infuriating to me right now that Amazon Prime and Disney Plus are the only services that offer 4K streaming with just I don't want to say out of the box, but in their just in their regular packaging. If you want to stream 4K on Netflix, you have to upgrade and pay more. And I don't want to pay more for something that I don't want to pay extra to watch 4K on Netflix if I don't like own it. I guess I don't know. Um, but as far as the privilege of financial privilege, that's an interesting point because I was actually going to go the opposite direction. If you are one of those people who's able to get by with only one or two streaming services, it's considerably cheaper than buying as many movies as I have bought, as all of us have bought in a year. The only difference being, it does kind of suck if I go a year and pay for a year's worth of Netflix and then only end up watching the same thing over and over again. I started with Netflix very similarly to what Sarah was talking about. When it started streaming, I viewed it as this is my substitute for Blockbuster. This is where I'm going to go to check things out. But then they started adding TV shows. They added The Office, they added Parks and Rec. They've got Community on there now. And at this point, Netflix is less of a place I go to explore new content, unless it actually does look interesting, like original content. But I don't go there anymore to explore like studio movies anymore. I mostly just go there to binge television, to have Parks and Rec on in the background while I go about my daily life in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of disappointing to think, oh, you're paying this much for Netflix and you're only using it to watch the same thing over and over and over again, and you're not getting anything new out of it. So yeah, but at the same time, that's still cheaper though than buying all of the movies that we have bought. Because
especially if you bought them like back in the day when they were I remember like I bought the whole series of X-Files on DVD, but I had to wait till I would find like it for cheap used on eBay because they were like $120 for like a season.
That's actually a great point. I'm going to give a little history lesson to everyone here. So this is actually during the days of VHS. So for those of you who are too young to remember VHS, when VHS was a big thing, a movie would come to theaters, and then, 6 months, however many months it was down the road, it would go to a video store. It wouldn't be available to buy yet, not at a Target or a Best Buy or your local video store, but you would have to go rent it at a Blockbuster or whatever other, rental chain was in your neck of the woods. You could, however, order them special through catalogs. And if you wanted a movie brand new at the same time that it was new on, Blockbuster shelves, a VHS would run $60. And that practice ended sometime in the mid to late 90s, particularly around the time when DVD became a thing. Because then, I think because DVDs were generally more expensive than VHSs, that whole practice ended. When a DVD was, new at a Blockbuster, you could go to Target and Best Buy and buy it. Because when DVDs were new, they ran like $30-$35 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
I know DVDs are probably only like 7 to 10 now, maybe 15 if it's a good set. Especially when you consider that's where we're at with 4K. If you want a 4K, you're going to be shelling out $30 to $35 for one movie. And again, financial privilege. I have to pick and choose which 4Ks I go for right now, and most of the time it's Marvel, or the big stuff. So yeah, it's really, the history of home media is crazy. We're whining about paying $35 for a 4K disc right now. Like I know deep down in my soul that my dad probably ordered a VHS for $60 that 6 months later was probably sold at Best Buy for like 15.
I bought a couple DVDs for like that much that were like that weren't being made anymore, but people were selling like an old one on eBay for like $60. And then of course later it was like re-released for way cheaper. But yeah, that was.
I know for a fact Zach spent like $70 on a vaulted Disney special. that was being sold on eBay. And then I think a year and a half later, they brought it out of the vault, and I found it for like $22 at Target. And I felt kind of bad because I think I've watched it once since then. I was like, I feel like I should watch this more often. Well, I guess my point with financial privilege, like as far as streaming goes, is maybe this is, I guess it kind of depends on what kind of consumer you are. Like, we have a lot of DVDs and a lot of TV shows on DVD, and we have a lot of Blu-rays. A lot of those we bought on sale. And if you're not somebody who buys a lot of TV, the thought, like if you buy, maybe one DVD a month or something like that, or you just don't buy a lot, the thought of paying so much money per month, like you said, especially if what you're doing is what I do, and you just watch Great British Bake Off over and over again, like, you're not getting your money's worth. And I think, especially with the way like the world's been lately, like I've just become so much more aware of how privileged I have been to like continue to be employed, and that I have this kind of discretionary money, which a lot of people don't. So not only are they like in financial hardships, but there's this basic thing that we all kind of turn to for like comfort and entertainment when the world is just like metaphorically up in flames, and sometimes literally in flames, depending on where you are. And you can't have it just because you can't afford it. Like that extra $15 a month needs to go to something more important than your 10th rewatch of Parks and Rec. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's all, that's all very much on a scale. Like it's very circumstantial.
That's very true. Yeah, that's $15 a month that, yeah, like you said, gets me a Parks and Rec rewatch when it could get me so much more. And I could just ditch that. I have Parks and Rec now. Once I heard about Peacock and how like 30 Rock and Parks and Rec and everything is going to Peacock, I was like, and I didn't know Peacock was going to be free for me. I bought Parks and Rec because it's like once it's off Netflix, once a lot of this stuff leaves Netflix, it's like, man, why do I need Netflix? I don't. And when I'm buying movies at Best Buy, or right now would be like online, for them in the mail, like I have to, I'm much more, it's much more discretionary spending when you're picking and choosing your movies to buy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's an interesting point. It's not as cut and dry as I think, as I thought it would have been. So that's a very good point. Were we on benefits of streaming? We were talking about the good stuff.
Yeah, good. We are. Pros of streaming.
And I know we've been kind of brought it down. Sorry, guys.
We did. It's okay. Actually, you're talking about one thing that I've completely forgotten about streaming, because, I don't leave the house that much anymore except to go to work, is streaming on your phone. You can take a lot of the streaming. If you have a phone that will play Netflix, you can take your Netflix anywhere.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of stuff on their streaming you can download too, so you can watch it offline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really nice because, like if you're going on that long road trip and you're in the middle of those dead zones, it's nice to have a couple episodes of TV on your phone that are just on your phone. Gosh.
Or if you're trying to watch, the ending of Game of Thrones when you have a small child, you can watch it on your phone with headphones in.
HBO Max, by the way, works on your phone. It doesn't work on your Roku, which I have, which is highly annoying. But you can't. It does work on your phone.
Yeah, I know. It's. I'm so mad about. But although that is a good example of having the physical media, because I'd started watching Deadwood with my husband because he had never seen it on our HBO Now, and then it went away on like our Amazon device. But I had the DVDs stashed away in my parents' house, so I went and got them, and now we can watch it on DVD.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to move on to the pitfalls of physical media, some of which I think we've discussed. But actually, the one I will, it's one I don't think that the three of us think about that much because we're collectors and we're careful with our collection. But they are discs. They can break. Yeah. It is possible. Mm-hmm.
Or get
DVDs,
scratched or...
DVDs, if you scratch a DVD, that was disastrous. It's a lot harder to damage a Blu-ray or a 4K disc by scratching it, but it's still possible.
Mhm.
It's very annoying when you get a disc in the mail and you shake it and it's like, that clearly fell out of its little holder there, and you have to open it up and pray that nothing happened to your disc. That's something I do. That's something I do at Best Buy. If I pick something up, it's like I just turn it upside down. It's like, is it secured? Nope. Okay, we're gonna grab the one behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And VHSs, oof,
Well,
those
yeah,
things were
those
so
were
easy
bad.
to screw up.
And you had to rewind them.
Yes, I don't miss rewinding. I remember when we got DVDs, back when I was in high school. Mom actually asked, "Don't you have to rewind it?" I was like, "No, we don't have to rewind it." In fact,
the best part, like right there.
I think my first experience actually with a DVD was one of my friends got The Matrix when it was brand new on DVD, and we just skipped to the lobby scene. I was like, "Holy crap! You can just jump to a scene in a movie without having to fast forward and damage the tape. That's amazing."
Oh, and remember on VHS too, if the movie was like over like 2 hours and 45 minutes, it had to be like on 2 VHS cassettes.
Yes.
So you had to like stop and change cassettes. But DVDs could hold like a much longer movie.
Unless they are the Lord of the Rings extended editions.
Well,
somehow Peter Jackson, and I get it. They wanted to use as much of the space to make the picture and the sound as good as they could. But I really think it'd be great one day if they release a version of the extended editions that you don't have to change discs for.
Are they that way on the Blu-rays too? I have them. I've just
they are still over 2 discs on the Blu-ray.
Are they really?
Yeah, they really are. And I imagine that's what it's going to be like on the 4K, because they'll want to get the best possible picture they can out of that, and that takes up so much room on the disc.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad they're doing it. Those films will look amazing and be really cool to watch that way.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm looking at my collection. There's also, I cannot emphasize. I think that in the next 10 years, physical media is again. I do think it's going to keep being slowly phased out. I think that there will be 2 studios left, possibly more. I know there's more than the big 2, but I'm going to grab.
There's another downside for physical media is that they kept releasing new versions of things to get more of your money.
Yeah. And I get the upgrade from buying an upgrade from a DVD to a Blu-ray or from a Blu-ray to a 4K.
Yeah.
In that case, you're getting something that looks substantially better than the previous iteration. But it would suck when you would buy, like, I don't know, we'll say, I'll just use The Matrix again as an example. I don't know if they did it with this movie or not, but if you bought like The Matrix brand new on DVD, and then like 3 years later they were like, here's The Matrix 3-disc version with 4 hours of behind the scenes. And it's like, where was this before? I think that actually they did that with the first Hellboy. Like, they released it on DVD, and then like a year or 2 later, they released like the 4-disc director's cut version that actually had a ton of behind the scenes stuff. And it's like, why? Why now? I already own it. I don't need to double dip this one. Actually, I do. I want to double dip that movie so bad. It's so good. Anyway, in 10 years, I think there will be 2 studios still releasing physical media for sure. One, which I've kind of brought up here in the streaming department, is the Criterion Collection. If you don't know what they are, they take films that are considered to be important historically, and movies that some studios are reluctant to sort of give a good treatment for home video. and they'll release them with the best possible audio and visual elements that they can find, as well as usually have a really decent set of supplemental features, including like they usually have a booklet with a lot of fun facts in them. So I think they'll still be around. I'm about to show my huge nerd side here. So this is the Dracula Prince of Darkness Collector's Edition. This particular disc was released by a studio called Scream Factory, which is a subsidiary of Shout Factory. They do the same thing, except they tend to lean towards more cult films. If I lived in Britain, I could just get Hammer Studios' own Blu-ray copy of Dracula Prince of Darkness, but because all of the Hammer films were distributed by a billion different studios in America that don't care about them anymore, you have to rely on like Scream Factory to somehow acquire the licensing from these studios and get them out. So, it's going to be interesting if that's like the case 10 years down the road, if like we have a Criterion or a Scream Factory, Shout Factory scenario just to release something like a Marvel movie. That'd be weird.
Mhm.
I could see they're kind of becoming like physical releases for collectors, kind of like how vinyl has come back for collectors. I could see it being, but it's going to be like really more specialized, like kind of movies that they think collectors will want to buy, I think.
Well, and they could also just merge all of physical under the banner of a single studio. I know recently, I think it was like Warner Brothers or someone struck a deal with, I think it was like MGM or something, and said, we'll release all of your stuff on home video. Mm-hmm. So it could just be one day that Disney, one of the other big studios says, we'll publish all this stuff on home video for you, for a fee. And that's just the one studio, because if any studio can sort of take the loss from declining sales in physical media, it's Disney. He said, regarding a company that has taken billions in losses from the closure of their parks. I don't think Disney's going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. We have once again rambled a lot tonight. I thought this would be a much shorter episode than last week, but we had a lot to say. And we still have trivia. Ta-da!
Let's get to it.
So, tonight's trivia, if I can find it here, comes from Dan Erickson. Dan asks, "Oh, Mara, do you know how trivia works?"
No.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question, a multiple choice question, and I'm keeping a tally of who answers the most questions correctly, and they get a prize at the end of the year. And the prize is currently, I don't know what the heck it is, because what kind of prize do you give? And I need more trivia. Please, if you're watching or listening, there's an email now that you can submit trivia to, or anything else you need to discuss about regarding film. The Sunday Matinee can be reached at fisheyelenseesall@gmail.com. So please submit your multiple choice trivia, and you might get a call out like Dan Erickson did tonight. Yeah, submit it with
Way to go, Dan.
4 answers, and please note the correct answer, because it might be a question I don't know about, like this one tonight. I did not know the answer to this. So, in which of the following movies does Bill Murray not play himself? Is it A, Quick Change, B, Space Jam, C, Coffee and Cigarettes, or D, Zombieland? Do either of you know the answer for sure?
Not for sure. I have an educated guess to make.
I also have a guess to make, because I've seen 3 out of 4, so I'm just trying to remember.
Sarah, I'll go to you first then. Since no one is sure, I'll just go to you first.
I'm going to guess Quick Change is the one where he doesn't play himself.
I'm going to agree, Because I'm certain he plays himself in Zombieland.
I know that one.
Like 98% certain he plays himself in Space Jam, but it's been like 15 years since I've seen it. And I'm pretty sure he plays himself in Cigarettes and Coffee. So yeah. Hey, quick change.
All right. Well, you are both correct tonight. So Sarah, you're currently at 2 on the board. Marit, you have 1. If you make it back onto the show, you can start playing catch up. You're so far behind. You're so far behind. So we currently have Sarah with 2, Marit with 1, and poor Dea with 0. It's okay. Dea can also play catch up the next time she's on.
Yes, I had no idea. First one. At least this one I got to make an educated.
Yeah. For those of you who didn't watch last week's episode, it was a numbers one, and unless you're absolutely obsessed with Raiders of the Lost Ark, you probably didn't know it. So that is going to be it for tonight. So I am hoping that the next episode is going to be the fantastic MCU special retrospective, whatever the heck it is. We need to talk about it because we may not get to see Black Widow this year, and we need to, not that we need to keep these movies relevant or hyped, because, you know, I don't think the world has let go of them yet, but it's just a fun thing to talk about. So MCU special. So hopefully I'll have you two on. I know I'll have Sarah on again at some point because we have the Nolan episode to do.
And if you do a horror movie one, I want to be on for that.
Oh yeah. Marit,
pretty much a lot of other things, you know, you could probably throw me on for too.
Well, if you ever decide to specialize in Disney princesses, I will certainly be available. Don't call me for Nolan because I will probably take up some ranting.
Nolan is probably going to be just the one-on-one, like lightning round with Sarah.
Nobody else is there. No.
Oh, I've definitely got friends. I've definitely got friends who like Nolan, but I you know, Inception I think was one. Inception I think was actually one of those movies that you and I just started talking about when we met. So it's kind of a special thing. Did
we go see that? I can't remember.
We did not see it together.
2010 is when I met you. So
yeah. We I think we just started talking about it at a Taming of the Shrew guest party.
Probably. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we have coming up. MCU, and maybe after that, if there's nothing else substantially incredibly big in the news, then maybe Nolan will come next. Who knows? And we'll continue to keep you up to date with theaters and the coronavirus pandemic and what the heck is going on with that. Will AMC succeed? Yeah. Will people go to the movies this weekend? And will they get sick? We hope.
Yes.
We hope if they do, that they don't.
Hopefully not. Yes, and hopefully not, but probably no.
So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Marit. Thank you for watching or listening, he said, knowing that this is currently not on any listening platforms like Spotify or anything, but it might be one day. Until next time, thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.